And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Another week of high school crunch time. Johnny and Dom, your favorite hosts. And as we were mentioning during a broadcast on Notre Dame, drive time in the morning, but we're right here for everybody to enjoy. So it's going to be another great day of high school sports, talking about the high school sports season. And Dom, we've had a fun one here. I mean, to get things going, let's talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, there's a lot of really good action that happened this week. I first of all want to address that since we're on Spotify now, go follow if you haven't already.
That's right.
Uh, had to up the setup a little bit, so got a more professional microphone, some headphones to match my counterpart over here. So glad to be back. We've got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was a busy week in sports. You can say that. You do the announcing for Notre Dame High School once again, and that's kind of what you're pursuing is the broadcast journalism, and you're the voice of Notre Dame. Came from Bayport. I did kind of the same thing, and we, like to cover the sports world, definitely indeed. But taking a look this week, let's get things right started and rolling. Let's talk about your Notre Dame Tritons. How'd they do?
Pretty dominant, to put it lightly. 56-0 win over Green Bay East. No Christian Collins again this week. That was something that Coach Rader coming into the game kind of made a game time decision, because I talked to Collins earlier in the day, and he said if it was a really, really big time game, then he probably would have suited up. But, with it being a home game, it was on a Thursday, so the schedule was a little bit tricky there. They decided it was best to give him another week to let that ankle heal up so he's fresh for the stretch run here, which is coming up soon. We're already probably close to halfway, if not there already, through the entire season. So it was Kingston Allen, again, 14 carries, 160 yards, and a touchdown. The Tritons as a team had 5 rushing touchdowns in this game, just really establishing the line of scrimmage, something that we talked about last week. And defensively, Charlie Hornacek had a really big game, 2 interceptions, as well as James Flanagan had another sack. So flexing their muscle, to say the least, in this game. They play Manitowoc Lincoln on Friday. I was looking at those numbers earlier for them. Not, the greatest start to the season, unfortunately for them. So it's at Notre Dame. It should, and all indications point to this being a Triton win once again, and more than likely after this week they're going to be 5-0, and we'll be talking about the still undefeated Triton squad next week.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I was there at the game against Green Bay East, and it was definitely kind of a head scratcher, like what was going on. Notre Dame came out and did their thing. I was really impressed by Charlie Hornacek. We have some highlights for that. We got his first pick of the night on highlight here, just from the stream. But he looked really good, and the rest of the offense looked good. But they were also, Green Bay East, a struggling school in the football program. There were some plays that were just kind of head scratchers for that team, and you just didn't quite know what was going on. But it was overall, a good look for Notre Dame once again, coming out playing good football, and that's kind of what they've been doing here, and they've been doing really well at it, just playing real good. Like you said, likely going to be a 5-0 team here after this week, with Manitowoc Lincoln coming up. But is there any chance of a shocker in this one? Like, do you see anything at all?
It would take a lot, for sure. Manitowoc Lincoln has, like I said earlier, really struggled this year. They're winless currently. They just lost at Sheboygan North 48-14. So I feel like a broken record saying this. With this Notre Dame team, you got to stop the run if you want to stop them offensively. Make them one-dimensional as far as the passing game goes. And that's another thing that maybe might be coming of age a little bit in front of us here. Max Pierce had a solid game, 5 for 7, 133 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Would still like to see him get some more opportunities to throw the ball down the field with some of those playmakers that they have. But we all know it starts with those running backs, and it seemingly hasn't really mattered who they've put back there these last couple of weeks. They're going to find a hole and hit it hard. We saw Kingston Allen last week had a really big touchdown run. So I believe Collins is going to be back this week. So that's a whole nother animal that you got to deal with. And I'm actually really interested to see how Coach Rader's going to play this year because they've kind of established Kingston Allen and Jack Collins these last couple of weeks while Christian's been out. So is it more of a split backfield type thing there? If you remember, remember when the Saints had Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara, they would each kind of come in like 50-50 split of the snaps. I'm wondering if we're going to kind of get something similar to that. I think that could be really good for them. And as far as Lincoln goes, yeah, they're going to have to really be hitting hard on the line of scrimmage, force some turnovers. They haven't really done that much of this year, so it's going to be a really really tough one. And they're on the road on Friday night, so uphill battle for the Ships.
Yeah, and the program kind of going through some changes down there in Manitowoc. Still trying to find their kind of their offense and just everything else. So it'll be interesting to see what they can kind of do. Even just get a touchdown or two during the game. It might not be a win, but it could also be just a couple touchdowns. But coming off a win like Notre Dame did against Green Bay East is that's momentum. I mean, 56-0. That's pretty steep of a win, and we've already talked about East not probably being the best football school, but it doesn't matter at that rate. If you're putting up 56, I mean, you're really kind of shouting to the moon there, and you're kind of showing your dominance moving forward. But any other thoughts on this game coming up between Notre Dame, Manitowoc, Lincoln? You guys have had a lot of home games.
Yeah, the schedule for Notre Dame is really front loaded. I think 4 or 5 of their first 6 games have been at home. I think they've only played one road game to this point, and it was week 2 at De Pere. So the schedule definitely changes after this week. I'm pulling it up right now. So week 1 was at home against Kaukauna. Week 2 was at De Pere, and then they've been in this stretch here of 3 straight at home. They went Sheboygan North, Green Bay East last week, and Manitowoc Lincoln coming up on Friday the 20th. And then things start to get a little bit interesting. They go to Menasha next week on the 27th, which should be a really good game. Those are the top 2 teams in the FRCC South right now. And then they're at Sheboygan South, at Green Bay West before they're at home again. So they're going to go, close to a month here being on the road, and travel is kind of a weird thing in high school sports because you're getting out of class, it's a Friday night, it's a different thing. They've been in the comfort of Ted Frisch Field for a while, and that's certainly going to be an adjustment, but it's something that they embrace. I remember the vibe in just walking class to class on Friday the 30th when they were playing De Pere. They embraced the road warrior mentality. They just haven't really shown it off at all this year because they've been at home so often. So the schedule is definitely going to change quickly here, and it's going to start to cool off in the next couple of weeks here. I was
Yeah,
looking at the
hopefully it's
weather.
been like 80s.
Yeah, which, listen, I'm not complaining. I love when it's hot outside, but fall football, cooler weather. So within the next couple of weeks, it's going to certainly cool off, and they're going to be on the road. So definitely a different challenge for them coming up after this week.
Yeah, I could see, coming on the road. Obviously, road game's a little bit different. Now, West is kind of a home game because it's like literally 2 minutes away. But, as you know, but going like Menasha is going to be a tough one. And then you got a couple others there coming up, which will be interesting to see how the team handles it, especially because different environment. You don't get the fans with you necessarily all the time. You could get, some fans getting rowdy. I could see like, a Menasha game or something like that getting really kind of intense because both teams are top tier in that FRCC South. And it'll be interesting to see what the Tritons can do is see if they can, continue to move forward and continue this, shocking start to the season. I'll be honest. I didn't predict Notre Dame being undefeated so far.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you there, especially with the first couple games that they played with. We're going to talk about Kakana here in a second. How good they've looked since then.
What happened
Def-
in that game?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So, Mr. I think I need to call you Samstradamus or something like that for calling that
Get
one
my
last week.
magic ball.
Yeah, very nice, very nice. So, um, yeah, certainly something that they're proud of. They've certainly found their stride the last couple of weeks, really offensively. Defensively, they've been really, really good throughout the course of this year. So it's going to be, all indications point that like the toughest game coming up on their schedule is going to be Menasha on the 27th. So you'll have to stay tuned for when we preview that one next week. Little radio tease there. So
Yeah, little bit of a teaser, giving people a little taste of what they want, but not giving the whole story away. Now moving forward, we look at Kimberly, number one now in the state, according to Max Preps, and I mean they obviously earned it, beating Fond du Lac 42-7. Brady Elson two rushing touchdowns and five rushing touchdowns as a team. So a lot of pounding ground and pound. Excuse me, I cannot speak. And they got Appleton East. Appleton East is kind of a program once again, not necessarily at the level of Kimberly. Kimberly's kind of probably the top tier, I would say, in the state. You're going to see them every year, pretty close to that championship mark. So it'll be interesting to see what Appleton East can do in that game. Personally, I think Kimberly's going to kind of squash them, just like they've done with pretty much everybody else in the schedule. Even Bayport, they took out like 42-14. So it's been kind of a crazy season for Kimberly, and they look really hot in the early goings. But it'll be interesting to see what they do here against Appleton East. Again, I don't think East really has a chance, but you never know because there's always that slip-up game. There's always that game the QB comes in, maybe at a long night before the game. He didn't get much sleep or something else like that, and he doesn't play as well. So it'll be interesting to see what Appleton East can do. I'm hopeful that they can actually make a dent in the game because Kimberly just has kind of walked over all their opponents so far this season.
yeah. Appleton East lost a really close one to Hortonville. It was 6-0
Yeah.
in the game last week. It was kind of a baseball score, really, not very cleanly played offensively in that game. I agree with you on Kimberly. They look like the best team in the state and don't really give much of any reason to doubt that they will be there in the end. This game is in Appleton, so
But that's
home
not
field.
too far of a drive.
Yeah, it's not too far of a drive. So, and Kimberly Faithful usually travels pretty much anywhere really well. So, yeah, that ground game is something different, man. It's when they got everybody going, and like what's so impressive about what they do is they really spread it out. I mean, just in the game last week, I mean, Ellefson had a couple of touchdowns in the game, but you look at the box score and it's like you go up and okay, Ellefson, 4 attempts. Keegan Plow only 11, but over 100 yards. He had a touchdown. Brady Bell, 13 carries, 61 yards. He had a touchdown. So they really spread the love everywhere, which is what makes them so hard to stop. And they're all averaging, really, really high numbers as far as yards per carry. Plow was just short of 10. Ellefson was really high. He was at 17. So, and Ellefson through the air threw another touchdown. But like that's what's so impressive about them is they don't really need a passing game because their QB can run it, and they've got 4 or 5 guys in the backfield that they feel comfortable handing it off to. It's almost like the 49ers the way that they do things. It's like whoever goes back there, you're going to be a stud because this offensive line is going to just pave the way for you to do what you need to do to get the job done. And defensively, they've been great as they've been all year. Eli Jansen had a sack in the game. He also forced a fumble. Um, they didn't force any interceptions, I don't believe, but when you're that dominant up front on both sides, it's a really tough matchup for anybody.
And Kimberly's just a football school. I mean, every player on their team can play ball. I don't think there is one that doesn't know how, like, isn't very talented at it, but I definitely see them, continuing to be really good in the continuation of the season and really not stopping anywhere. I just don't see them being, dropping a game anytime soon. I thought they were going to drop one against Bayport, but sure enough, they came in the Bayport and they kind of took over. I mean, that's what Kimberly does. They're at the premier of schools for football here in the state, and it's it'll be interesting to see how the rest of the season go, especially playoffs. Now that they got that 1 seed, they got the target on their back. And I mean, we're still a little bit of ways away from this, but I personally don't see anybody, coming in and beating Kimberly.
So let me ask you about that because they're at Appleton East this week. They host Hortonville next week. Then they're at Neenah on October 4th. Now, Neenah is another team who is currently ranked. I think they dropped down to 22.
Yep,
I'm not,
they dropped
if I'm
to
not
22.
mistaken. Yeah, tough game against Kaukauna. That's the one that I'm looking at as of right now that I'm like, okay, this could potentially be a loss here. I would still probably go with Kimberly in that game because, anybody can do Monday morning quarterbacking and be like, well, this is what the numbers say. This is how they looked last week. And so I think the game that they have circled on their calendar is probably the one at Neenah, and then they host Kaukauna after that too. So two barn burners, hopefully back to back there. But I think for the next 2 weeks, to your point, I don't think they should have.
I don't think they're gonna have any problem.
I don't think they're gonna have any issues either. So, Appleton East and Hortonville, bring your A game, give them a good fight, see what you can do. But it's kind of the unstoppable force is just kind of coming through here, seemingly for the papermakers.
Kind of the Death Star of the Wisconsin football is Kimberly. They just take everybody out. They rotate around the planets and then they just destroy them.
So you're saying that they're going to self-destruct at some point this
year? No. It's like the Death Star in the early episodes when they get not in the later ones. Early movies when they kind of just take over. They go to different places and they just destroy things. I mean,
that's kind of blow it up.
Yep, just kind of get it done. Let's keep moving on though. Kaukauna, number 12. They host, let's start with Neenah. Neenah, number 22. They host Oshkosh West on Friday. They lost to Kaukauna, and I called it. Let's go. I called it, and I knew it. I knew it was going to happen. Evan Van Evenhoven, he was 12 for 16, 182 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 1 rushing TD. Dean had 3 carries, 8 yards. Dre Hannon had 12 carries, 36 yards. Ashton Van Plee, 3 catches, 96 yards. And then they had a couple other playmakers. It looks like Zane Schmidt had 1 fumble recovery. But Kaukauna upsetting Neenah, and Neenah plays good ball. But how does Neenah bounce back from that one? Even though it looks like their starters played a solid game, and they looked like they had a pretty good one, they just weren't able to keep up with those galloping ghosts. And I just learned about the guy that rides out on the horse. I mean, that's sweet. Yeah. Dude, that's sweet that Kaukauna does that. But anyways, how does Neenah bounce back after a loss like that?
So you can go one of two ways here. I know we talked in, I think maybe our first episode, we talked about how does Bayport bounce back after a tough loss to Kimberly, I believe. And this is a little bit different of a situation, I think, because I don't think Neenah, if they're being honest with themselves, probably played their cleanest game on either side. I mean, offensively, they were solid through the air, but we've been hammering it home with them the last number of weeks that it all starts with that ground game. And Grant Dean, only 3 attempts, 8 carries.
Yeah, that's not enough.
That's nowhere near enough. I don't know if maybe he got a little dinged up or anything. To be honest, I haven't had the chance to watch it yet. So if he got dinged up, that might be something to look at going forward. But they got to reestablish that line of scrimmage this week because that's where it all starts for them. Defensively, you give up 17 points against a Kaukauna team that's really good. Offensively, I think that's a win personally. And they forced a fumble, which was good. They didn't have any sacks, which you would like to see against a team that throws it as much as Kaukauna does. Braun Schaefer at 24 attempts passing. So I think with Neenah, they got to reestablish the ground game. And if I'm not mistaken, they got down early in this game, which is maybe why they kind of abandoned the run game quickly in this one. So I think for them, even if you start, getting down in a game, you can't get too far away from what has gotten you so far this season, and it's been those running backs in that ground game. So, this week they are at home cooking. They have Oshkosh West this week. Oshkosh West is currently 1-3 on the season, so kind of a get right game for Nina, I think. And after the performance that they put up last week, that they're going to be hungry to go out there and get a win.
Yeah, without a doubt, I think Nina Rockets solid football program. We've said it this whole time. Big running game for them. I mean, that 3 carries is definitely not enough. You got to get the ball, hand in the balls of your good running backs, especially with Dean. I mean, 3 carries, 8 yards. I don't know what the game plan going into that one was. Might have to question it a little bit. No, I didn't get to watch it either. So it'll be interesting to see once we get a chance to maybe look at it, or hopefully one of you guys chime in and we can hear from a fan or somebody of the Nina Rockets, and then we'll get a little more intel. But anyways, I mean, you can't rely on 3 carries, especially if things aren't working out. I mean, you got to keep pounding the ground, especially high school football. Ground game's huge, and if you can't do it, you're often going to lose games. So I don't know. They got to bounce back in some way, and I think that's going to be through the ground game.
Yeah, agreed. Especially in this conference, the Fox Valley, with how many good teams there are. I mean, you got Nina, you got Kaukauna, who they just lost to, and then you got Kimberly, obviously, and then Appleton North is actually 3-1 in their own right, so they've had a really nice season here as well. So, you can't get too far away from, like I said, what has gotten you to this point. This division kind of reminds me of like the Big 12 a little bit. They all just kind of beat up on each other a little bit, and they all have their identities. They all know what the other does well, and you can't, try to come up with a crazy new game plan to try to counteract, what you think your opponent's going to do. And I'm no coach, like, admittingly, obviously, that's why I'm sitting here doing a podcast, but
I could be a coach.
well, you could be a coach. That was a fun conversation last week. But you have to reestablish that ground game, and that's really where it's going to start for me. That's the number one thing when I'm looking at games and different things that happened this week when we go to Nina to write down our notes and watch the film and get ready for the show. First thing that I'm looking at in that box score is how many rushing attempts did they have against Oshkosh West, and that's seemingly what starts because the defense was good. The defense, you give up 17 points to a Kaukauna team that previously had been rolling up until this point. I mean, they scored 13 week 1, but then 35 the last 2 weeks. One time against West Appear and one time against Hortonville. Like, that's a really, really, really good number to keep them under 20 and just, not enough offensively. So, got to get back to that ground game. Can't say that enough for them because that is so much of what they do and what they built that program on.
So what are the things to watch for Friday? I guess just a consensus here against Oshkosh West. It's going to be seeing if they reestablish the ground game, making sure they get more carries to their running backs, get those guys going, and they should find themselves with the victory, I would expect, at the end of it. Do you have any other opinion on that?
Not much more. Defensively, I would like to see if they can keep this up, because defensively, that might be just as impressive of numbers when you go and look at them to their ground game to this point. Defensively, they're the 2-2 is kind of deceiving because they played Muskego and Kaukauna early in the season, but then they gave up 31 week 1 to Muskego, but then 13-0-17.
Yeah.
You do that every week, you got a good shot to win.
Without a doubt. Now let's continue to move on here. It looks like Kaukauna, we're gonna flip sides here. Kaukauna, obviously beat Nina 17-6, and now they're looking at Fond du Lac on Friday. Fond du Lac, once a pretty prominent program. A few years ago, they were a really good ball squad, but they've kind of slipped off of that pace. How are you feeling about that Fond du Lac Kaukauna game?
I think Kaukauna is riding on a high. They even when I saw them in person week 1 at Notre Dame, that you can just tell that they are extremely well coached by Matt Binsfield. They, I remember we had this conversation at one point. I can't remember if it was last week or maybe 2 weeks ago about they were kind of like a Jekyll and Hyde situation because one week the defense played really well. The offense kind of was trying to pick things up a little bit. Then one week the offense played really well, and then the defense kind of had they made up for it in the end. I think it was after the West Appear game we had that discussion.
Yeah.
So, the last 2 weeks, both the offense and defense and special teams too, they really have come together and have performed like a complete team, which is what you need. So, against Fond du Lac here, Fond du Lac is winless on the season right now. They're only averaging 10 points a game, so should be all indications coming off of that big win against Neenah should be a win for Kaukauna. But I will say this is prime upset territory. Big win last week. Things are feeling good. Kind of riding on a high a little bit here. Maybe get a little too overconfident, and then boom, they got you. So Fond du Lac is. I may not necessarily pick it, but they're in decent spot for an upset here.
Yeah, Fond du Lac is in a good spot. I would agree with that. Fond du Lac, a solid team. Not gonna deny it, but they just had their struggles early in the season, and just haven't really found their kind of niche or found that cog inside the old rotating wheel. And maybe they find it this week. I don't know. I think Kaukauna is a really good team. I think they're going to be a good threat come playoffs, and I think they're a team to watch out for. Frankly, I think their next best game is going to be against. I don't even know. I haven't looked at their schedule to be honest, but Kaukauna West Appear is always a good one. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. Did they already play yet?
West Appear, yeah, they played week 2. That was the crazy play
Yeah,
with the fumble out of the back. So Kaukana's remaining schedules, they got Fond du Lac this week, then they are at Oshkosh West next week. They host Appleton North, and then they're at Kimberly on the 11th of October before they wrap things up at Appleton East on the 18th. So that Kimberly one is, we don't like to necessarily pick losses on this show, but
Kimberly's just so good.
They're we can't in case we haven't said enough, they're a really good team. So that's the one coming up in mid-October that I would be looking out for if I'm Kaukauna, but 1 week at a time. Like I said, you can't get too ahead of yourselves at any level, and especially when you're in a conference as competitive as the Fox Valley. That's if you do that, you're asking for trouble.
Without a doubt. Kimberly's going to be that team that probably kind of spoils things, just because they are that good of a squad. Again, making sure. Sorry, what?
There's no shame in that either. For the Kaukauna faithful out there, there's no shame in, if you play Kimberly tough, there's no shame in maybe taking it out.
Absolutely not. That's a really good school. They're going to do really good things. And just beating Kimberly's, kind of a mountain to climb, but we'll see what they can do. Now let's move on to Bayport. Bayport once again continues that winning train after losing once again to Kimberly early in the season. They beat Preble 41-13. Matt Stevens 144 yards, 1 touchdown, 38 rushing yards, 1 touchdown. Brady Moon 177 yards on the ground, 3 TDs. It looks like Mickey Jones had an interception, and then we got a couple sacks from Nick Hawker, Brock Gauthier, and Kenan Belinsky. And so they've been. We mentioned this before on the Thursday games. They have their final Thursday game coming up here, and I know that's been your kind of a schedule nut. But what do you what's actually I only see upside to it, like going from Thursday to Friday, you get the extra day off. But do you think that upsets tempo going into Friday?
It could. I think, anytime I like a schedule personally and kind of sticking to it. So Maybe they've become adjusted to the Thursday games. Now, this Friday, they're at a Schwabenon, which, in all honesty, that's not that crazy far of travel goes. I think if it was a further distance between the two schools, I'd be a little bit more concerned. It's not too long of a bus ride whatsoever. So I think with the Thursday thing, it's number one interesting that Bayport was the team to have that happen to them. Um, it's kind of cool to be honest, but um, as far as interrupting the rhythm and kind of the flow of things, I think if we're looking at it from a coaching standpoint, I bet you Coach Jorgensen probably likes it a lot because he gets an extra day to get these guys ready to go. Because I always think about this like I run cross country, albeit not the fastest guy in the world, but meets are usually on Thursdays. So that Friday practice, it's kind of like, well, just kind of it's kind of a whatever, just kind of shake it off type of day, But like when you're playing a high school football game, that's obviously a completely different sport when you're hitting helmets and different things going on. So I think from a coaching standpoint, that's probably a good thing that they get the extra day to get ready for a Schwabenon. But it's gonna be those games are always rowdy without question. And Schwabenon is 3-1 on the season. They did just lose against De Pere, so they are going to be hungry. And you talk about two big rivals, Bayport and Schwabenon. I don't know if it gets bigger than that.
No, without a doubt. And I do have something wrong here. It looks like I said Preble twice. I believe. So Bayport played Preble, and then it looks like West De Pere played Southwest. I have something wrong on our ticker, I believe. Because I wrote Green Bay defeated Preble, or Bayport defeated Preble 41-13. Can you double check on that? Make sure we got the right schools.
Yeah. 2 weeks ago on Thursday, September 5th, Bayport beat Preble at Preble 41-13.
Because they were at Appleton West or East, right?
They were at they hosted Appleton West on the 12th last week.
Okay, so I just had it wrong in our rundown. I just want to make sure it looks right in our ticker. A little bit of a malfunction there. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. It happens when you get a little bit overcrowded. But Bayport once again going to be a strong school. Everywhere you see them, they're going to be playing good football. And without a doubt, I don't really see them losing another game. I don't see them losing to Schwabenon. I definitely think they can win that game, and I think they'll just carry things on as they go. Do you have any other thoughts on Bayport?
Really good. It's been nice to see that they've kind of been able to rebound really nicely with two really dominant showings these last 2 weeks after that tough loss against Kimberly. I agree with you. I'm going to pick Bayport in this game against Schwabenon. Schwabenon's had a nice season so far. 49-42 victory week 1 over Oshkosh North. And they played De Pere tough, but it kind of looks like De Pere took it away a little bit in the end there. 34-14 was the final in that one. So with Bayport, defensively they're going to be good. They've been pretty solid for most of the year, and Matt Stevens looks really good, man. Like really, really good, both throwing and rushing. He's making plays, and you look at Brady Moon, not as many carries maybe as you would like, only 4 in the game against Appleton West, but when you got the defense doing what they're doing, they forced a fumble. They had a sack, number of tackles for loss. Playing behind, putting the other team in tough situations. To your point, Bayport has seemingly been good my entire life, which I know is maybe not like the most earth-shattering thing in the world, but they're really good school, really good program, and it's been really impressive to see that with the coaching change that they've been able to maintain as dominant a program that they've built up there for a long, long time.
Yeah, and I mean, when I went to school, they were very good, and they got Schwabenon once again. Schwabenon was good for a few years, and they've kind of slipped off a little bit. But it'll be interesting to see if Bayport can maintain this, and because then they got Green Bay Southwest after that, and then a good game against De Pere, West De Pere, and then Pulaski to close out the season. So they got a little bit of a task on hand, but I think the Pirates are going to continue rolling the ship and continue to find a way to win. Continue to find a way to win. Both teams, Ashwaubenon and Bayport, both really good football schools. I will not deny that. But I think just Bayport, as you said, has been really good your whole life, my whole life, as far as I know. They really developed a great football program there, and they continue to do it. Now let's go over to the De Pere side of things, and let's talk about West De Pere. Man, they are an interesting team to watch. I personally wanted to highlight them. I got a lot of friends over at West De Pere, and just really kind of an interesting school. To say the least, just how they play the game, how they do things over there. It's a little bit different than everybody else is doing, but they had a big win over Green Bay Preble, 42-6, and they showed their dominance once again, and it came through the air. I mean, how do you throw? Here are these stat lines for Grayson. 26 for 39, 320 yards, and a QBR of 104.6. Like that is pro stats at its finest. And I talked to the backup quarterback for West De Pere, and he's like, yeah, it's insane. We don't know why. They know why, because he's got a very good lineage of quarterbacks and football players. But it's so impressive to look at for those Phantoms. And I mean, what can you say about that? I mean, just the offense, how they run it. They run like a passing offense, and it works.
It sure does. It's the closest I think I've seen so far to a pro-style scheme that they run with Coach Grayson over there. You talk about lineage. The Grayson family is, I think, one of, if not the most athletic families I've ever had the privilege to meet a couple people from, because Hannah Grayson was a phenomenal athlete who went to Notre Dame for her 4 years. She played volleyball and played basketball, won a number of championships there. So West De Pere, 3-1 on the season. They're averaging 40 points a game. Their lowest scoring game this year was 31 against.
So if you do the math, 39.75. I did the math there. 39.75 points a game. My goodness. And then through the air, Dom, I mean, you just don't see that in high school football. It's really, really insane.
You really don't. So we've been talking, really the whole show in these first couple of weeks about how great some of these teams' ground games are. They have a solid ground game themselves. Evan Ott has had a really nice season. He had 17 carries, 92 yards, and 2 touchdowns in the game against Preble last week. But when you got Patrick Grayson back there dropping under center, you feel good no matter what is going to happen there. Because you just know that something is going to happen that you've probably never seen before out of a high school quarterback. And they've got a number of really good receivers over there. I'm looking at the box score. Brock Story had a big game, over 100 yards. He had a touchdown. Evan Ott through the air had 20 yards and a touchdown. So West De Pere is certainly a team to watch out for, especially since the last 2 weeks their defense, with the exception of the game at Kaukauna, their defense has been really good this year too.
Yeah, they're dogs. They're dogs back there.
Gonna say they've pitched 2 shutouts this year, against Hortonville and Southwest. So they've got Pulaski on Friday. Pulaski is 2-2 on the season. They've had a couple nice wins over Hortonville and Southwest, so similar to West De Pere from that regard. But you know what's going to happen in this game is West De Pere is going to come out, they're going to throw the ball, and they're going to throw the ball downfield because they can.
They have that. They have that option.
Yeah, it says so much that it's coming too, but they're good route runners over there too. I was watching some of their
no doubt.
Highlights, and I mean some of their cuts and their breaks are just so they seem so effortless, which is I think the best compliment that I can give them. So West De Pere is playing in the FRCC North, so just kind of division wise here. They are battling at the top with both Bayport and De Pere, and I believe they still have to play both those teams at some
Yep, they
point.
had
Don't
to play
they?
Bayport yet. And
Yeah.
it looks like they have Pulaski, Ashwaubenon, Bayport, Appleton West, I think, to close out the regular season. So I think they played De Pere, maybe? I haven't checked.
Let's see. Oh no, okay. So they are at Pulaski this week. Then they've got De Pere at home next week
Okay,
on the
so yeah.
on the 27th is that game. So the battle for De Pere is gonna be
Yeah,
going down.
even though it's not East De Pere, it's just De Pere.
Yeah, I never quite understood that. It is what it is. But
Yeah, it's
uh,
before our time.
that's correct. So they've got a number of really good games coming up. Actually, the Schwabenon's in there. So to close out the season, they play 3 of their last 5 games on the road, which is not ideal. But when you got Patrick Ryson on your team, you've got a shot no matter where you're playing. So I'm picking them to beat Pulaski. It is at Pulaski. It's a little bit of a car ride, but um, I think they're gonna beat Pulaski, and that's gonna set up a huge showdown next week with the Redbirds.
Yeah, I got them beating the Red Raiders, and then I think they're going to beat the Redbirds as well. Um, and I mean, I think their only loss probably is going to be to Bayport. I think Bayport is a better school. They got a good defense. We talked about the sacks from multiple players. So Greison's going to have a lot less time dropping back because those dogs are ready to hunt on that D line for the Pirates, and they're going to be coming after them all evening long. I guarantee it. Anything
I agree.
else high school football wise you want to talk about here?
I don't think much more. I don't want to jump too far down into different schedules for teams because we've got a lot more shows coming up. Stay tuned. Um, I don't think anything more. It's been. Can you believe that we're already halfway through the season and it's. Can you believe that? I seriously can't get over the fact that we're at the halfway point already.
It's been a quick. I mean, given we kind of got off to a late start, but we did pick it up. I think week 2 or 3, and
I think it was week 2 we got this sucker rolling, and we're already.
yeah, we're already here.
Yeah.
But it'll be interesting to see how the season pans out. I mean, we got a lot of interesting games, to say the least, still yet to come. And obviously, keep listening in. You'll see those podcasts. We'll give our takes and we'll share our thoughts. But any other sports you'd like to highlight here as we kind of close things up a little bit?
I do have one major event that's going on this weekend for anybody who's in the cross country circle. The Roy Griak Invitational Meet that is held at the University of Minnesota will be taking place on Friday. So I don't remember the specific race times and different things like that, but I know that that is it's a national meet for a ton of teams across the country. So I will be there in person. It's always amazing to see, like, especially when you're not the fastest guy, like to see how fast some of these people can run. It's like, I would love to do that just
See how
for a
much
day.
dust you eat?
Yeah, seriously. It's like the most amazing thing ever. Like, and so I'll be going with Notre Dame, obviously. We've got some really fast kids, and I think, man, just one day, I would love to know what it's like to just absolutely just cook somebody in a race. But that'll be coming up this week, Friday, which I'm looking forward to seeing and being there for. And I will be able to provide a report on how that goes next week.
Perfect. We would love to hear it. I don't really have anything else high school wise, but I wish you the best of luck in that race. Hopefully you're not too far back in the pack, but I'm sure you'll do just fine.
I'm not running. Let's not give
Oh,
let's not give people a false sense of hope here. I am not running. I will be there as a spectator, and I'll be doing some live streaming stuff out there. But
okay.
if I was Johnny, if I was running in that race, that means that we're in a rough spot. Let's put it that way. So.
Yeah, it's not. I tried running a little while ago over the summer. It's exhausting. It sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
run and then it's like once you get heavier. Well, wait till you get heavier and older. It gets worse and worse. And I used to I used to be a really good runner, and I tried to get back into that form. And then I'm just like, you know what? My knees hurt, my back hurts, everything hurts. So I'm just gonna walk, and I'm tired of this. Any last thoughts here before we close things up, though?
I don't think so. It's crazy that we're already, like I said, halfway through the fall season. It does not feel like fall currently. Like we said, it's been in the 80s the
It's
last
been
couple.
hot, 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 hot,
Sure
hot,
has
hot.
Sure has been. So, we're gonna get in the next couple of weeks here. It's gonna start to become sweater weather a little bit for stuff around here, and just looking forward to. In case I haven't thanked you enough recently, pal, I make the joke to some friends all the time. I have no idea how a Bayport guy and a Notre Dame guy became, good pals and partners in this thing, and I'm still not fully sure why or how you got involved with us a couple of years ago, but I'm so glad you did, and I'll owe you forever. So thank you
Hey,
for everything, pal.
I really appreciate it. This is a lot of fun, a lot more fun. And wait till we get guests on, people. This will be
Yeah.
even crazier. For a high school sports show, I definitely enjoy it. I look forward to it every week. It does take a little bit of work and elbow grease, but it's all worth it at the end. So, but I really appreciate that. Thank you. I do try hard at this and try to give you as many opportunities as I can. But let's wrap things up here, ladies and gentlemen, for high school crunch time. And I hope your team wins this week, but not everybody can win. You got to take a loss once in a while. But be sure. Now, I know I did put it on the ticker, but it must have cut us off. Be sure if you do have any questions or anything else you would like to be on the show, contact us at WESPN at WESPNsports@gmail.com. That's what that other part of the email is, at gmail.com. And then you can contact me on social media at RealJohnnySamp. Got that in the ticker, Dom D'Angelo27, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
For your Instagram account. So be sure to contact us. We'd love to have you. I'd love to have you share your opinions on it. Give us your takes. Give us anything you'd like. We want to hear from you, and we wish you a great rest of your sports season. And we hope you guys tune in next week. So you're closing out for high school sports. I'm Johnny Samp along with Don D'Angelo.